What is up, guys? Welcome back to Just a Guy on My Lunch Break. Because why? Because I'm literally just a guy on my lunch break. I talk about all things Kratom related on here. We've talked about withdrawals, what withdrawals are like. We've talked about tapering from Kratom. We talked about cold turkey from Kratom. I have a Kratom taper playlist on here where I shared from the very beginning, at the very start of my taper, how I went about tapering off of Kratom to the point where I was completely off of it. I'm not completely off of it at this point, so I always give this as kind of a disclaimer with this channel. If you're a person who is in this for the long-term abstinence, meaning you feel like you can never take something like Kratom again. For you, it's not about controlling it, because you can't control it. It's about never doing it again. And you are part of the NA community or the AA community, and your school of thought is 100% abstinence from all mind-altering substances all the time, forever, as long as I walk this earth, then Just a Guy on My Lunch Break is probably not going to be your channel. It's not that I don't agree with that mindset or that school of thought per se. It's just that I'm not doing it. So, and for some people that may be necessary. For me, it may be necessary, but I'm still not doing it. I still want to be able to, take mind-altering substances if I want to be able to do that, because I am, in fact, a grown man who has that right. And, I think I live a pretty healthy, balanced lifestyle, in spite of the fact that I do like to take a few drugs here and there. Let's just be honest. I'm a successful person, successful life, successful relationships, successful career. And if all of those things are in line for me, and if, I feel like my substance use is not in any threat of taking those things away from me, then there you go. All right. So Just a Guy on My Lunch Break may not be for you. And I always say that as a disclaimer, because, and this is the internet, man. So it's never going to change, and I knew that once I started a channel like this. I knew that I was going to have people, from long-term recovery, whether it's the NA or the AA community. I knew I was going to have those people eventually. When you have hashtags like addiction or hashtags like recovery attached to your video, or withdrawals attached to your videos, or hashtag drugs attached to your videos, it's only a matter of time before you have some folks from that community happen up on your channel. And of course, if that's the school of thought that you're coming from, you're gonna hop on my channel and be like, oh dude, wow, fuck that, man, this dude's trying to have it both ways. This guy has told stories about him being an addict and admitted that he considers himself an addict. Now here he is still trying to use mind-altering substances. You can't have it both ways, bro. And there's undoubtedly going to be people to come on and say that. You can look at my life, man, and make your own decisions. And everyone has an opinion. And I would invite someone to look at my life, look at the inside and the outside and the innards of my life and my support system and my social structure and just everything surrounding my life in general. And if you can look at that and you can say, oh wow, yeah, this guy's life is definitely spiraling out of control. If you can look at my life and think that, then I will rethink everything that I've just said, and I will reconsider my stance on possibly going to NA or AA at some point. But as long as my life is like it is now, where I'm a very happy person, I'm a fulfilled person, I'm a healthy person, I'm a positive person, in spite of the fact that I like to dabble in a few drugs here and there. I don't even like to say a few, because really for me it's Kratom. But if I feel good about that, then what place do others have that don't even know me to look at me and say, well, you can't do that? And what I find a lot on here is that people say that based on the fact that they couldn't do it. All right. So anyway, listen, if you like the stuff I talk about, if you like the discussions about Kratom, the withdrawals, if you want to kind of curtail your relationship with Kratom, get kind of a healthier balance with your Kratom use, and you're one of those people, look, I don't want to completely give it up. I love it. It has a lot of good benefits for me. I get more benefits than I do negatives, but I want to make sure that I keep it that way. I want to make sure that I'm getting the benefits and I'm not getting all these negative side effects from taking too much too often. Then this is a good channel for you. And if that's you, then I want you to hit that subscribe button. The content's free. It's free forever. Your payment is just simply hit that subscribe button. It takes you 2 seconds and you don't ever have to worry about it again. If you're from the NA community, the AA community, and you're of the belief that a person, you are of the belief that unless you are just a recreational user and have never had any sort of trouble with going down a rabbit hole of addiction, and you are still using a substance or any substance, any psychoactive or mind-altering substance, and you're of the school of thought that you can't do that because you're an addicted person, you're a drug addict, therefore you have no ability to be able to control mind-altering substances, then this may not be the channel for you. And I'm just going to be completely honest about it. And you can jump in my comments all day and you can say this, that, and the third. And you can say, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're playing with fire. It's a slippery slope. Eventually, it's always going to, 100% of the time, it's always going to end up here and there and the other place. Then, I don't know what to say, man. I'm not going to block anybody. I mean, as long as people come at me with respect and are courteous and polite in the way they go about things, I don't ever block or ban anyone from coming on and leaving a comment. But I will say you might be wasting your breath, because I am where I am. I've been doing this channel for probably 5 or 6 months now. If I do change my mind, it's not going to be as a result of what you say to me in the comments. It's just not. I'm a 47-year-old man. I've been living on this earth a long time. I've been living my life a long time. And I know what my life looks like on the inside way better than you know what my life looks like on the inside. So I'm not going to sit and listen to a person across the country or across the world for me who has never even met me in person tell me that I'm in a bad spot with my Kratom use, or that I'm playing with fire by still taking Kratom. Because one thing I have learned on here is people tend to project. Projecting is not always a bad thing, but in certain instances, projection is absolutely a bad thing. And I had a person yesterday to leave a comment, and I knew, immediately when I read the comment that he referred to Kratom as that sludge. But the interesting thing is I know who this person is. And I actually gave it, when I was going through my taper process, I actually gave this person my private information, phone number, that sort of thing. It was like, yeah, dude, hit me up, any ideas that you have, this and that. So I know who the person is. I know who you are. I'm not going to put him on blast or call him out on the video, but this guy has been in some ways, he's been a little pushy towards me, and it was to the point where I was like, hey bro, I gave you my phone number, so we could have an open, honest forum and more personal discussion about this sort of thing. I didn't give you my phone number so that you could spend every waking second trying to convince me that I'm wrong and you're right. And what happened to you is undoubtedly the exact thing that's going to happen to me regarding Kratom. Because I know this person actually used Suboxone to get off of Kratom, you know, and again, I'm not going to say anybody's name because I don't want to put someone else's business out there, but you know, the person, if you're listening, you know who I'm talking about. You know I'm talking about you. And you know, and again yesterday, you know, said some things where I was like, hey bro, okay, you have a right to your opinion, but I don't have quite as much patience for and tolerance for people who come at this whole thing with this frame of mind that, oh, because this happened to me and because these were the results of my experience with Kratom, then it's gonna be the same for everybody else no matter what. No, bro, no, you know, it's just not true. And it's not any different than pointing to two different people. Both of them were introduced to an opiate, let's say when they were 17, 18 years old. Both of them were introduced at the same time, introduced to the exact same drug. Let's say they were both introduced to Vicodin, okay? And then you look at it 10 years later, and one of those people never became addicted to the drug at all. Well, now let's use three people. Let's use three people. We got three people, same age, all of them at age, let's just throw out a number here, at age 18. All try for the very first time an opiate. All right, let's say they go to the dentist and they get, you know, a wisdom tooth pulled. And they all three try an opiate, same size, same strength, everything, all at the same time in their lives. The first person doesn't get addicted at all. The first person, they take the pain medication, it has whatever effect it has on them, and then, you know, weeks later, they have forgotten all about it. Months later, they hadn't thought back at it. They haven't gone back in their mind, oh, I wish I could have some more of that. It just never happened. This person is not an addict. This person is not an addicted person, right? They were never going to be, and were never bound to be addicted. Okay? I'm trying to teach you something right now. Then there's the second person who, let's say they got addicted to it. And throughout the years, they had some issues with being addicted, right? And there were times where it got out of control for them. And there were times where they actually displayed drug-seeking behavior, especially once they had gotten to a point where they were taking something all the time, like an opiate, right? Because we all know if you take something like an opiate all the time, you will experience physical and mental withdrawals when you go to stop it. So let's say that person experienced that, but at different points and different times in their life, they were able to pull themselves back, dial it back, reel it back some, excuse me. And this person still has all their shit together, still has a job, hasn't lost their family, hasn't lost a career, hasn't, you know, they're living a happy, healthy life, right? And then you got a third person who either dies of a drug overdose or lost absolutely everything they owned to a point where they had to have a some sort of family intervention, or they got busted so many times for illicit drugs by the police and by the law that they were forced to go into a treatment rehab facility, whether it be for just illicit drugs, homelessness, a combination of those things, because of their the path that they went down with the heavy drug use, sometimes even including not only using but selling, distributing, whatever, okay? That's only 3 examples. So imagine those 3 examples, and then imagine levels in between those 3. You not only have the different variations of those different 3 levels that I just described to you, the person who never gets addicted, the person who gets addicted, but it's not to a point where it just took them completely down the rabbit hole of death. And then you got a third person that it did take them completely down the rabbit hole of death. Their life completely spun out of control. They absolutely had no control in their lives, to the point where they're getting in trouble with the law. They have multiple, drug charges on their record, multiple felonies. Been in the hospital a few times for overdoses. They've lost their homes. They've been evicted. Their families, their spouses have left them. They've lost custody of their children. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So you have those 3 levels. Now imagine this. There are hundreds of levels in between 1 and 2. The first person I just mentioned and the second person I just mentioned. In between those 2 people, there are hundreds of levels, degrees of drug addiction, if you will. And that's what I think people really have trouble wrapping their brains around. The person I'm talking about that made the comment yesterday to where I was just like, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Same thing. This person obviously has trouble wrapping their brain around the fact that, hey, some people are able to control it better than you. Some people are more disciplined than you. It could have been that the reason you had such a horrible experience with Kratom and coming off of Kratom is because you're one of these people on this level up here. And I talked about this yesterday. You have people that decide, okay, I have to have some measure of control of something like this, or I'm just not going to be able to take it at all. If I can't control it and take a moderate amount, then I'm just not going to be able to take it, because it is one of those that if you take too much of it, and if you're one of those people that you cannot put a Kratom product in your mouth without a week later being a person who's taking 100 grams of Kratom per day. There's people out there that are like that. And I shout this from the mountaintops on this channel all the time. There are people out there who you just can't take it, bro. There are people that can. And I know you envy those people, but you are not one of those people, because if you take it today on Monday, by next Monday, you're going to be taking 80 grams per day of Kratom. You're going to be shoving a spoonful of Kratom in your mouth every hour on the hour, and then you might take a second if it doesn't do what you want to. And the problem is when you get into that rut, where you're constantly doing that, constantly dosing too much. And another thing this person said, talked about the feeling, kind of the interdose withdrawals, how you feel when you're not peaking on Kratom versus how you feel completely sober, or 2 completely different things, basically saying you feel 1,000 times worse when you're taking Kratom, but you're not actually peaking on it. And, bro, yeah, I mean, if you're taking 50 grams per day, I can see that. I can see that. I can absolutely see that, if you're not taking it every day, and then if you're not taking it, if you're not going over the top with it, 40, 50, 60, 70 grams per day, me personally, I've never really experienced that. Again, interdose withdrawals for me have never really been like a thing, but even when I was taking the Kratom, I wasn't taking all that much. I mean, I never really got above, 12, maybe 14 grams per day, and that was on a heavy day, you know. And I have a theory about stuff like this, and I don't think it's just a theory. I think there's a lot of truth to it. Kratom is one of those things where less is more. If you take in smaller amounts, you take just a little bit of it, you get some good benefits from it. You do. You know, it lightens your mood, makes your mood a little better, gives you a little bit more energy, kind of a stimulant sort of effect. But if you take too much, and then 2 hours later, you're already dying to take more, and then you take more, and then an hour after that, you take more, and then each time you are taking it, you're taking a big-ass, huge, massive spoonful of it, and it begins to build up in your system, and it begins to negate itself, and it begins to work against itself. Now, it's no longer a stimulant. Now, you're no longer getting euphoria from it. In other words, you're not getting any of the positive benefits of the Kratom. Now, it's making you tired. It's making you lethargic. It's making you sleepy. You know? And you know, so I just had to bring that up because it's one of those things where a lot of times I try to take stuff like that with a grain of salt. But I've had certain people on here that just won't freaking give up, man. They're just relentless in trying to, what's the best way to put it? Trying to attribute their own personal experiences with something like Kratom to everybody else out there. And I just want to say, you know, everyone's not the same. Everyone's not the same. You know, and in some circles, depending on how much you were taking, how long you were taking, how heavily you're taking it on a daily basis, this person could be right. The interdose withdrawals might suck ass. They might be really bad. I've never really experienced that. But I've never been taking an astronomical amount either. Well, no, you know what? I take that back. I have gone through periods of time where I was taking a lot more than I was at other times, like when I went on vacation or whatever a few weeks ago. You know, I took more than I probably should have, for sure. And I definitely remember after coming off of that vacation just being like, damn, you know, a little bit irritable, a little bit more snappy than usual. But I had been on like a major bender with Kratom. I was taking way too much daily. You know, and I also found myself getting very sleepy too, which is not like me. I'm a very energetic person who eats super healthy, drink tons of water. I exercise vigorously every week. I mean, I only skip, you know, just a couple of days each week. I do at least 4, sometimes 5 days a week of some pretty intense exercise. So I'm a person that's just typically a very energetic sort of person. So for me to be sitting around at, you know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and starting to like, oh, getting sleepy, I know for a fact that that absolutely had to do with the amount of Kratom I had been consuming. So while I see where the person's coming from, I also want to make it clear on here that there is not one side of the fence. There isn't. There is 2 sides to every fence. If I took a coin right now and I threw it up in the air, 100% of the time it's not going to land on heads. Why is that? What do you know? Flip that little coin over. There's a tails side too. Wait, Corey, what do you mean? What do you mean it's not going to land on heads? You mean there's actually a flip side to that same coin? But it's only one coin. Yeah, there's a flip side to it. And it's the same thing with people. It's the same thing with drugs. It's the same thing with drug addictions. Now listen, I'm not trying to be on here. Hold on. The last thing I want to do is to be on here encouraging a bunch of people who are really out of control with their Kratom use to continue using Kratom. Just as I said, there are 2 sides to every coin. okay? And there are two sides to the dynamic of drug addiction. No, there are not two sides. There are thousands, millions of sides. And people are very different. And how people used certain substances are very different. Why they were using certain substances were very different. Did you know that what's going on in the rest of your life, meaning what kind of relationships you have with your loved ones, what kind of job you have, what kind of interactions you have with people, what kind of house you live in, what kind of exercise routine you have, what kind of diet you have. Did you know that all of that is going to affect how much kratom someone uses? Furthermore, all of those things are going to affect why that person uses the amount of kratom they use. If you ain't got shit going on else going on in your life, and you're a lazy fuck that sits around and eats processed foods, drinks sodas, and sits on your phone or plays PlayStation all day, and you take kratom, guess what? You're probably going to take about 10 times more kratom than what I take on a daily basis. Because you know what? I'm not doing all that shit when I take kratom. I take my dose of kratom and I go do something productive. And then I stay busy over the next 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is. And I just want to say that there's so many foundational standards of a human being that affect how they use kratom and affect how much kratom they're going to use. You know, and if they are a completely miserable ass person with nothing else going on in their lives, and they find something like kratom that really makes them feel good, they're probably going to take more kratom than someone else who does have a lot of positive things going on in their lives. And that's all I really want to say about it. So I'm kind of off my soapbox about that. If you're on kratom, I have a lot of people that are watching me who are like, look, I love your videos. It really, really is keeping me on the straight and narrow. It's really giving me that motivation to start a taper and to stick with the taper, because I need to curtail my use or lessen my use. So I just want to talk about that a little bit real quick before I shut this video off. So I have a kratom taper playlist on here that talks about how I went about tapering off of kratom. But at the expense of not everyone is going to go and click that taper playlist, I want to give a little bit of that information now. Okay, so if you're on extracts, then in my opinion, the best way to go about tapering is to first off switch to powder. Okay, now listen, I just want to say before I even get started, because there's so many, let me not curse, there's so many people, well-meaning, awesome people, that jump in my comments and give their opinions. But my problem with some of these people's opinions is you can tell by the way it reads that they think that their opinion is the gospel. Just because it's their opinion, just because it's what they think, they automatically attribute the facts of that opinion to other people. And they think that everybody else must be the same way. If this happened with me that way, then it must be the truth. It must be the bottom line. It must be that same way with that next person. And that's just not true. It's just not true. So what I will say is, if you're a person that can do a cold turkey, or if you don't have a ton of responsibility in your life and you're a type of person where you don't have to go out, you know, make money every day, pay bills, if you got someone to kind of help support you or another family member you can kind of lean on, that sort of thing, and you're able to stay out of work for a week and a half, or if you're between jobs or just whatever it is, you might want to do like a cold turkey. If you're wanting to come off of kratom altogether, you may want to just do a cold turkey. It's gonna suck for a little bit. You might have some loose bowels. You'll have some insomnia for a week and a half, maybe a couple of weeks at most. You know, you'll have trouble regulating your temperature. You'll have restless legs at night, to where you're just really unable to sleep. Like I said, you'll have trouble regulating your temperature. You'll be kind of hot, and then you'll be kind of cold. You'll get what I like to call chicken skin during the day, where you'll just have random goosebumps for no reason, but not in a good way, almost like you're coming down with something. You'll get that sort of thing. You'll have very low mood, very low energy, because something like Kratom gives you more energy. And especially when taken at higher amounts, your body compensates for that by shutting down, not completely shutting down, but lessening serotonin, dopamine production, which serotonin, dopamine, all these things are the chemicals and the neurotransmitters in your brain that actually allow you to feel pleasure, right? You need serotonin and dopamine to have that feeling of, oh, well, I feel good. Yeah, it makes me feel really good. You need those chemicals to be able to have that feeling. Well, Kratom dramatically increases those chemicals in your brain, especially if taken at really large amounts. And then when you go to abruptly stop, you're gonna feel that in the form of depression, anhedonia, having trouble getting, finding pleasure in anything, that sort of thing. So what you need to be aware of is that cold turkey is absolutely going to give you those sort of things. Then there's a taper process, where what you're doing is basically tricking your body to reset itself slowly, by slowly decreasing your dose every day. So you will experience some of these things, but it's going to be at a very, very, very much lower amount. So instead of having like just crippling depression and crippling low mood and low energy, you might just have one of those days where you're like, damn, I sure wish, I would like to take more so I can get that, feeling of like, feeling of euphoria and that stimulatory response that I normally get from Kratom, because you might not be getting that because you're taking less than what your body is used to. So you will have some negative side effects with tapering, but they're not going to be nearly as bad, and your body will not be able to distinguish them as clearly, as it would if you were just to abruptly stop everything. So that's one of the reasons people do tapering. One of the downsides to tapering is if you don't do a quick one, sometimes it takes a month, 2 months. If people are taking a shit ton and a very large amount of Kratom, it may end up taking them 3 months, 6 months to come off of them. That is a negative aspect of it. For me, it didn't take me that long, but I wasn't taking all that much of it. Again, I was only taking like 10 to maybe 14 grams per day, somewhere around in there. So I was never taking like an ungodly amount of Kratom. But it's one of those things where you have to stay committed to it. You have to tell yourself no when it comes time to take that extra dose. And what you need to do is every 3 days to 4 days, cut down by about a half a gram or a gram, whatever you're comfortable with. I always went a little bit more aggressive. There were times where I cut down, a gram or 2 every couple of days. Now, it was a little uncomfortable. It was, but it was a lot better than the alternative of going completely cold turkey on something like that. And you just do that for several days. You can use things like melatonin at night, a little bit of kava. Kava can actually help you sleep, help you rest, help a little bit with the withdrawal symptoms. Strenuous exercise helps a lot. People swear by vitamin C that it helps a lot. B vitamins, because Kratom has this thing where it can deplete your body's ability to be able to absorb nutritional value. And so now that you're coming off of it or lessening your amount, you can start to supplement your diet with those things, and those things can also help to reduce withdrawals. Vigorous exercise, drinking tons of water every day to help your body go through and process and flush out the Kratom is a big part of it. And other than that, keep yourself busy. Keep yourself busy. Don't allow yourself to backslide. Don't allow yourself to take more than you should in one given day. If you have to write down what your taper schedule is and follow it to a T every day, that's what you do. I suggest doing it with the capsules. It makes it easier to figure out what your dose is going to be, because you know how much kratom is in the capsules. So I recommend doing it that way if you're going to do it. If you're coming off of the extracts, you may have to start your taper with a decent amount of the capsules, unless you're actually going to taper from the extracts and just take a little less extract each time you dose. And I've heard of people doing it that way as well. So that's kind of up to you. But that's what I recommend as far as tapering. I'm pulling for all you guys that are going for it out there. And, play my Kratom Taper playlist, watch the channel. I'm so glad that it gives you guys strength. I get so many messages about that, and that's why I'm doing it. Just trying to help people. If you want to get off of it completely, trying to help you get off of it. If you're wanting to just taper and then get it under control and get it to where you're not taking an ungodly amount every day, can help with that as well. If you're wanting to get off and stay off, I recommend going to an NA or AA, because I chose not to stay off. I like the benefits of it, and I'm one of those people that feels like I can have a measure of control over it. And that's the only thing I do. I don't smoke weed. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't do anything else, and I'm a super healthy person aside from that. So until that changes, my relationship with kratom is probably going to stay the same, where I just take it from time to time, and use it responsibly. So not everybody can do that. Some people can, some people can't. Either way, love you guys. Gotta go. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy it. Like the video and leave a comment and let me know where you're at in your journey. All right, guys, this is Corey, just a guy on my lunch break, and I'm out. Peace.